Brittany, I am Megan, and this is Sydney.
Awesome. Hello, girls.
She is the woman that she's been in the mask a few times, but she's the photographer, and my best friend. So when we do podcasts, I like to invite her in because Sassquatch wouldn't be a thing if she wasn't my right hand woman. So
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure people always wonder, like, well, how the hell do you get these photos and videos, anyways?
yeah,
So
I think
post them up and
I think it adds to it of like I'm the woman underneath the mask, but my page wouldn't be so pretty if I didn't have this one right here.
Thanks for acknowledging the little people.
So I have so many questions, and I don't really know where to begin, but I'm super in awe of like how radical like what you're doing is, and of course it's making a movement and creating like noise, if you will, in your community and area. So maybe just kind of start with like Sasquatch itself. Like, what is your real understanding and like connection with that?
Yeah, it's a really long story, but I had almost like I guess an awakening, a spiritual awakening. I'm trying to find a better word for it, but I had a spiritual awakening 4 years ago, and I became very aware of my thoughts and my beliefs, and I took the observer role and noticed that I was not my thoughts and beliefs, that they were just things, a conversation I was born into as a child, and what the conversations people were happening. And it's almost like I touched a little bit of my core, and I decided to go on a journey of basically unlearning everything that I had learned growing up and as a child, not because there was anything wrong with it or it was bad, but it wasn't aligned to who I actually am in my own truth. So I got into shadow work, and this specific modality of shadow work is called voice dialogue. And it's where you dialogue with different parts of your ego, your personality. And I realized that I had a really loud inner critic, that anytime I wanted to like share my truth, or, like on my regular Instagram, I wanted to share like some wisdom or like something that I received during a meditation, I literally couldn't post it because of how scared I was of judgment and what other people would think of me. And I was like, and I would listen to that voice. And I was like, why can't I step out and be this fully self-expressed woman? Like there's something within me that's not allowing me to do so. And when I went to my mentor and I was trying to get rid of this inner critic, the inner monster, and my mentor looked at me one day and smiled, and he was like, but the monster is you. Why don't you change your relationship to the monster? Why don't you create with the monster? Why don't you dance with the monster? And that's when I was like, oh my God, what if I put on a mask and honor that I am scared of judgment? And in return, there's a loud judge inside of myself that, judges myself too. But my soul was calling to spread my truth, or just be in my truth. Not even spread. I think it just was like, I want to be in my truth. That the way in which I could do that was by putting on a mask and a bodysuit and becoming the monster within myself. And then I'll use that as my way to catapult what I want to do with my life. So with how the whole Sasquatch, like the actual Sasquatch came to be, it's kind of just like a story. We were divinely guided by certain people sending us pictures, and I do this funny walk that kind of resembles a Sasquatch. And then I went to go see a hypnotherapist, and we saw this face in my being, and then that happens to be the face that I wear with Sasquatch. So it was kind of just like this little breadcrumb of the actual Sasquatch. What was really interesting is that, remember back in the day with Sasquatch pictures, they were all blurry and like they didn't want to be seen, and they're constantly like evading cameras. Then it was like, I'm ready to be seen and I want to be seen. And so I have my best friend who takes amazing photographs where nothing's blurry, it's very crisp, and I'm ready to be seen on multiple levels. So that's like very much so like a nutshell version of how this all came to be, of creating from the very thing that I thought was holding me back.
That is really, really unique. I definitely can resonate with that, fear of judgment, lack of support, you're just afraid to put yourself out there because you don't know like what that even is like. And you might see other people kind of doing that similar work, but you're like, how did they get to that level? And like I had a lot of resistance even with promoting like the vision and mission I had for this podcast, but I
Yeah.
just stayed open to like, I know there is an abundance of people who resonate on the same level. It's just a matter of getting the word out there and not being afraid. So like once I basically said yes and I committed to like doing it, investing in the domain and equipment and stuff, it was like things just started unfolding rapidly. So I'm like, all right, I guess I am in my truth. You know, very similar to what you're sharing, just like living what I'm supposed to be embodying and doing and working for as service in the world. So, you know, it's so different for everyone. And I talk about this a lot on this platform, but to discover your passion and your purpose is, I think, one of the most like crucial things anybody should try to, I don't want to say yearn for, but like search for, but not so, or you don't be hard on yourself when it's like, well, I'm not finding what I'm happy with or what I want to do in life. Like it takes time. And you know, to have the right people in your life, that's definitely like the next step to discovering it. But it's that whole fear set, and it's all like that monster, like you're saying, in your head, just telling you, oh, you can't do it, you're not good enough, or someone else is already doing it, and you wonder like, well, where did this come from? Why am I like basically belittling myself and self-sabotaging when I know I can step up into that power? So it's interesting, you know, the polarization that you're doing of basically transforming, but also not losing part of the shadow or dark side of what was here, you know?
Yeah. And I am a shadow worker. Now I am a voice dialogue facilitator, and I have clients now where we do this exact thing. And sometimes it can get really murky and dark, but that's where transformation happens. And like I say this so many times, I learn more from my valleys than I do in my peaks. And if I allow myself to go full down into my valley with grace, awareness, allowing myself to feel and experience everything, when I come out on the other side, it's like I am a brand new woman with creativity I didn't have access to before. It's like I release something, and then I'm able to show up in the world as a brand new woman with new ideas and new access to new creativity. So it's such a beautiful thing to be able to witness yourself in lower or denser, I like the word denser, in denser energies or things that you're transmuting or working through. Because on the other side, it's a release, and you get to step out into the world like, I mean, literally a new woman. And that's really beautiful. I love that you shared that about your process with your podcast, because that's when you know that you're doing something right, is when your ego gets scared and it's like, I don't want to do this, I'm scared. But like, it's like your truth or your higher self is feeling the pull so much so that like you you just continue, you created your podcast and you didn't listen to that voice. And that's like really beautiful, and knowing that you're on the right path and things unfold because you're listening to your calling and your inner knowing.
Yeah, the best way I could put it, I mean, it's truly just refreshing, and it feels good. I feel good. I know that in my truth, like this is what I want to do. It brings me fulfillment. It's much more than just my selfish being trying to like make money out of building a podcast. Like I'm basically promoting other people for free. You know, I'm not looking for any kind of accolades or, you know, promotion. I don't want to be famous, but if it happens, it happens. But I'm still doing it like out of pure love. And it's again something I've basically had the vision and idea for so many years, it seems like. But it was just more resistance and kind of like, is this really what I want to do? Is this where I want to put my time and energy into? And more signs just kept showing up. And, you know, it's being open to listening to those, of course, and wanting to just do different. Like you have to make the conscious choice of like wanting to make a change for yourself, and doesn't come, you know, overnight. There's habits you have to get rid of. There's a lot of commitment things that you have to prepare for yourself, and of course just time management and all the above. But it's so rewarding. And that's, you know, that whole kind of stepping into what we're supposed to be. It's like this goddess that's been reignited within my soul, and like the blockages are not there. Like, right, it's not like things just kind of flow. I can communicate better. I know what I desire. I know what type of life I want to, you know, be surrounded in, what type of people I want in my life. So just kind of continuing on that path, and I'm really looking forward to where, you know, it'll take me, because it's already taking me some really magical places. So
Yeah, and ones that are in alignment with your truth. And I think that that's something that I've been learning on my journey is when I didn't know myself, 27 years of my life, I was just doing what I was supposed to do. And I went to college, got the job, and, I checked off all the boxes that I was supposed to. But I didn't know myself. And therefore I found myself, I was just in a job that I actually couldn't stand. It was so out of alignment with my truth is. And once I started on this journey to finding out who I am underneath all of the conditioning, now my external reality is shifting a lot. And now I'm even, I'm attracting different types of people that are more aligned, like how we're having this conversation right now. And I'm learning right now, starting to set boundaries of how important my energy is and the conversations and the people that I need to surround myself with in order to continue to forward and move and create the world that I want to create.
That's where the magic happens too.
Oh yeah.
Like when you're truly aligned, and we kind of like giggle about this all the time, like when we're in our zone or in our creative zone, and it's like little signs or synchronicities pop up everywhere. And it's like just little affirmations from the universe. So I take that so seriously because it just kind of like, oh my gosh, it's working. What I'm doing is working. I know I'm on the right path. And then, like Megan said, we all have our valleys, and then it's just like another big roller coaster in a good way, in a fun way, when you are going back up to that peak and you just get reaffirmed because you went through whatever you needed to go through. And I think it just powers us to go further and higher.
And it's fun when we speak about something and all of a sudden see like a truck drive by with like the word we were talking about or some sort of confirmation. And we look at each other and we're like, you're living in like this magical world of like, did you just see what I saw? Like, I'm not alone in this. And you enter into, nothing changes, right? But you all of a sudden have different eyes and different ears, and you're able to perceive things that is so magical. And you realize that, how beautiful and magical this world could be is like, it's a perception that you just can tap in and turn into anytime you want to.
No doubt. It does come with a lot of unconditioning, the societal standards, of course. That was a lot of work, but
yeah. Still is a lot.
It's a lot of, for me personally, it comes from my family, and a lot of their outdated beliefs are still intact, and it's just hard to, be with them on that level, because I find that I'm actually still triggered when they say certain things, but I'm like, oh no, that's just old paradigm that I still just have to let go. Let go. That's their beliefs, their thoughts, that's their reality, of course. They are choosing to live that. I've chosen alternative lifestyle in way of perceiving this whole universal cosmic experience. It's, of course, you're told, okay, got your birthdays and the holidays, everything is just by the books, of course, until I guess COVID comes and you're like, oh shit, like everything I actually did know is that was all just us running the show. And now it's kind of been put on pause, and it's like, oh shit, so what are we going to choose to create as our job, as our workforce now? Like, we can do better. Nobody really loved their job that they were doing, I'm sure, as you can say with like your experience of checking off the box, getting the degree, you got the like entry-level job, and you're sitting there in a box wondering, this is what I worked for, this is what I worked to get to. No. it's not soul-filling. In fact, it's truly draining. I can remember days where I couldn't wait to go to lunch break, because I would take my car and like go sit underneath like a tree in nature just to basically reset everything, because you're like, wait, what? I was just staring at 2 desktop screens, and like, I don't even know if I'm thinking for myself anymore. I'm being conditioned to work for this company and feed their values and systems and such. That's why I'm, of course, doing this alternative media outlet, so I can get people with real refreshing ideas and the new earth mindset, of course, to how we can move forward after this pandemic. We're all globally aware and have been affected. So it's like, all right, what's next? And it's everyone kind of stepping into their truth and not being afraid to share that. So that's, part of the tagline is share your story, speak your truth. Like, I get that that's not going to call to everybody, but it will to those who are ready to. And that's where I'm at.
When did you start this podcast?
So I officially launched it this year in January. yeah, basically just had to start recording, and that was really intimidating. My first interview, I look back at it now and I can't even watch it honestly, because I just like I'm disappointed. And
Ours too. No, that's totally how it's supposed to be. I was like trying to wait until things were perfect, the message was perfect. My first one was so awful and I cringed the entire time, but then now as we continue to move forward, like each one of them, they get better and they get better.
Yeah, I think that's just like kind of with anything, that you're trying. Like with my photography business, I just kind of threw myself in it, and I said yes to everything. I was like, okay, like I'll figure it out. And it's been like 5 years now, and I still have every shoot, those moments where I'm like, what am I doing? Or like, I learned a lesson, I do something wrong, and I'm like, oh, okay, like moving on.
Yeah.
I'm never really regressing. And I think that kind of speaks to kind of what you were talking about earlier. Once you do the unprogramming and then knowing, you can't really go backwards. Like when I'm around my family, I get triggered all the time. And I just have to, I can't go back into their way of thinking and living. So I just have to love them for who they are.
And that's when like the work comes in too, right? Of like, what's that Ram Dass quote? And he's like, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family. And because that's where you learned all the conditioning, and because that's just what they knew and they learned from their parents, that just keeps trickling down. And I think that's where I go to practice a lot of my work, is when I go back home, because it's all the childhood stuff coming right up to the surface again. So it's like just a great opportunity to breathe, do the work and the dialogue work that I do. Like I do that a lot.
And I think it's fun. We're very fortunate to like have each other and like live together as well. So it's like when I go home or I have a conversation with my brothers or, my mom, and then I talk to Meghan about it, I think it's fun to be like, okay, what do you think that they were programmed? What was it like for them as a child? And it's like us trying to figure out or deconstruct our parents, while also still sharing with them and hoping, that little light bulbs get turned on within them. But,
so you both are located in Denver now, is that right?
Yeah, we are like right in Denver, Colorado. Have you been to Colorado before?
I actually have. So before this all hit the fan, I spent 10 days out there.
Where?
Got to go skiing and everything, thank God. But so we flew into Denver and we drove out to Aspen, and then we stayed there with a few friends. Yeah, I know.
I love Aspen. We go to Aspen like 10 times a
year.
Yeah,
that's our end goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's closest thing to heaven on earth that humans have designed in that place. But then we drove out to Park City and then drove back to Aspen and then trickled our way back to Breck. So we stayed in Breck for one night and then flew out in Denver.
Yeah, you went all over.
Everywhere. Yeah, it was really radical. And I'm so thankful, so thankful I got to, because I'm like a travel gypsy. And I mean, the itch isn't really here right now, because I get that it's almost physically impossible, and what's there to really see and do, right? So I'm kind of content with that, but it's still a very special place. It's like the furthest place I've been out west. And I just, the culture is different, of course, with the marijuana industry out there, but it's so different out there. Like people in Florida, it's kind of like a melting pot of retirees, middle class, or spoiled children who just don't give a fuck or know what's going on in life. And maybe that's the same for everywhere, of course. But out there, I just feel like people are more understanding and kind of open to like listening to your life.
We call it a vortex. Yeah, she's from Atlanta and I'm from Washington, D.C. And after living in Washington, D.C. and like Northern Virginia, it is a very different vibe out here than on the East Coast or other cities in the South that I've been to, of just everyone is way more open. It's like community. I just have a bigger sense of community out here, of people helping people and wanting to get to know each other on deeper levels, and not just what we do for work, and just creativity. There's just so much creativity. Probably nature. I think like being so close to like actual nature is probably influences that in a big way.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I mean, because with like Florida, it's basically everybody just has a connection of beaches, but they fail to recognize there's like 4 or 5 different other environments that we need to protect on this type of land. so they've basically just overdeveloped and there's not much preserved. So it is what it is. But yeah, mountains are special places for humans to go. I spent 6 months in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina.
Cool.
So I'm sure being from Virginia, you know what I'm talking about.
I do know. Yeah.
Shenandoah Valley, everything over there. But they're just like older, ridge mountains, and the Blue Ridge is just awesome. Then you go out west and it's just a whole different level of
And it's a whole new game. Yeah.
Whole like different feeling too. Because I had never really been out west, and then we did a road trip, and it was just like kind of breathing deep for the first time, and all I'm doing is just like driving around looking at beautiful scenery.
Where in Florida do you live?
So I'm pretty far south. I'm near Naples.
Okay. She spent some time in Naples.
Okay.
We have a friend that's from there.
I was gonna say your grandparents.
Well, yeah, which didn't you stay with Savannah's grandpa?
Yeah, but it's a Savannah does live there.
Okay.
Like anytime, I meet someone new, it's like, oh, where are you from? Naples. Oh yeah, I've got a grandmother, grandpa, great.
Yeah.
I'll probably wait on this.
My neighbor.
And it's, of course, even during this time, it's interesting to see how much of the community you're surrounded by and who's being impacted and not. But I'm very centralized to the more low income communities of, foreigners, of course. And then basically, I guess stock market. I don't know how all these people have money, but they've got it. And, they're all from up north basically. So they do their half back 6 months and come and go. But because it's such a heavily populated or older populated crowd, the streets have been empty, and we're in season right now, so it should be an influx of traffic at every stoplight. But now it's just open roads, so you're oh, this is great. But again, you don't realize how much of an impact they are on the area and community itself. So it makes sense that it's hard for me to resonate and find people around here because they're taking over. So you kind of have to search deeper, but I'm very grounded, and I know I have a spiritual community around if I choose to be involved. But right now it's just almost impossible because all the venues and places are closed. So doing what we can do. So you guys have all your restaurants closed, is that right?
Yeah.
Everything except for coffee shops. Apparently those are essential. So
a lot of restaurants are doing
takeout or window service or takeout.
Yeah.
But you can't go in and sit.
Yeah.
So do you girls still work or no?
We work from home. I do a lot of weddings. So I was supposed to have a few weddings between April and May that have postponed or canceled. So I'm just kind of editing what I have left, and we'll probably make another Sassquatch video here soon.
We got one on the decks for tomorrow. I put on the calendar. Okay. We got a good one for tomorrow. But then I just quit my corporate job at the beginning of the year. And so now I am a voice dialogue facilitator. So I have a few clients that I'm able to still work with via Zoom. So yeah, and then I help her sometimes with weddings, shooting second photographer. So we were hit a little bit there, but honestly, I feel like we're kind of in a good flow state. We're trusting,
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if business starts booming for Meghan, with people having to be with themselves and deal with what's coming up. They're going to need someone to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah, which I think that this quarantine is a beautiful, I'm really into the masculine and feminine energies and having the balance of healthy both of those. And I think our world is very tilted on the masculine of energy of not men, the actual sex of men, but energy, masculine energy of doing and being in our minds. And I think the universe has literally halted us to make us be, so we can actually be with ourselves. And a lot of people, if you're not aware or haven't been doing any kind of work, this could be, I understand why a lot of fear and things are coming up within people because they don't have the awareness of the things that they have been suppressing inside of them. They have to come up in order to be released or transmuted. That things have to come up. And I think we're seeing that on a larger scale right now.
So with your clients, maybe you can speak about this just kind of as a, real life experience of what do you find most of these people's, I mean, really, the blockages, that's the best way I can kind of frame it, because it is an energy blockage within themselves that they're just holding on to, the resentment, the trauma, the whatever, is that, you know, you discover most of these people are holding on to.
So usually the women that I attract based on my message is women that the fire within them has been awakened, but now all of their conditioning, which usually is around shame, resentment, judgment, the too much wound, which I think is a very collective thing. The too much wound comes up a lot of, I don't want to step out and say this. I don't want to be too much, or I feel a lot of, I'm a big feeler, and I had a lot of shame around feeling, which now I'm realizing that's my superpower, and I can understand how that could make a lot of people in this world not comfortable, because not a lot of people are truly feeling what's coming up within them. And so with a lot of the women that I mentor and I am with, it's a lot of deconstructing their shame wounds, too much resentment, and anything that's standing in the way from them stepping into their truth. And it's a really, what were you gonna say?
I was like, I feel like you help them navigate what comes up too. And I think that's important to say, because like that's something I need help with. It's hard for me to share or be open in general. So when I do that with Meghan, I'm like, this is coming up, but I don't, help me, figure out what it means.
Or you make a good point. I give language to what is going on in somebody's internal world. With the work that I do, it's giving a pathway and language to be able to go back to center. And then to answer another part of your question, who I attract is healers, a lot of women that want to step up and help shift the paradigm of this world, and creatives. So I attract a lot of creatives, artists, singers, and say if they're having a block and they're like, I'm not creating right now, I can't, nothing's coming to me, no inspiration. With the work that I do, there's a pathway and language to then create a story for them to go to their canvas and start painting. Or one of my dear clients that I have, she's a singer, and then she's able to go and write a piece of music from a session that we did. And it's like the inspiration comes from the story and the language that we create in my sessions.
It's really powerful, girl. You really do.
So it's beautiful to be I feel like I'm on the front lines of it's like this secret society of women remembering who they are, but we're all meeting in circles and on Zoom calls, and we're having these conversations. It's like the flexing ground almost to go out into the world and stand in our energy and our sovereignty out in the world to be able to shift some things. And I think it's really fun. For a while, I felt like we were just meeting in circles. Women were just meeting in circles, low key in the woods, of deconstructing all of our conditioning to be let's go out there and change this thing. And it's been really beautiful to be a part of. And the wave keeps getting bigger and bigger now. People are waking up by the droves now.
Yeah. My understanding with the whole, feminine, masculine energy, and of course we've just been very overpowered by a large patriarchal government, society, whatever you want to call it. Of course, the men are the business side, and the money makers, and the grinders, the builders, the everything. And it's no, we have a whole other side of, understanding creation that can be born. And that's just having the intuitive compassion side from a woman. Of course, we're wired differently. But beyond that, we know what can be more nourishing and sustainable for a community or a village. And that's, again, what we're kind of all being called to do as and empowered and ignited, basically.
Yeah, and even the masculine and feminine energies within all of us. For a while, because I was indoctrinated into the society, I had an inner patriarchy within my own psyche. So it wasn't the patriarchy external from me, but there also was one within me too. And once I got very aware and would hear certain thoughts, when I would see something, I could start to hear it. And then doing the work on myself of, oh my God, there's a patriarchy within myself, and bringing back into balance. And when I call myself too much, that's my inner patriarchy calling my feminine too much. That's happening within me. So of course it's going to happen on this external level. So instead of fighting that, why don't I go within myself and I do the work and I heal my own masculinity in myself and allow my femininity to come out and have that balance in myself. And that was a really big aha moment that I had when I became aware of my own internal energetics, like of the masculine and feminine energies within myself too.
So does the Sassquatch that you represent online have a gender?
So honestly, Sasquatch is my true self in my feminine core, and that is who I truly am. And I needed the mask to do that, because the mask that I created for myself from my conditioning, this ended up not being who I was at all. A woman that was in her masculine and working and, doing and not letting herself feel or calling herself too much when she did feel. And then when I started doing this work and then wanting to step out into my truer essence, I had to put on a monster mask to be able to do that of, I want to express who I truly am, but was so scared to do so as the personality that I somehow created and wound up with. So I think she's feminine, as I wear the tight bodysuit. And so you can definitely tell that there's a woman underneath of it.
Something just came to me.
What?
Feel free to shoot this down.
No.
When you asked about the gender, I was thinking like, oh, because, certain people like being called they now, or she, him, whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what if Sasquatch is also a we or an us?
Of the masculine and feminine energies combined. Yeah.
And reflection too, because, you're posting what's coming up for you and you're sharing that. And then with so many messages, so many comments, people are like, oh, me too. Yeah, I have that, inner monster. So it's like a mirror.
I think I think what you just said there, I have a more fuller understanding of why some want to be called they or we. I've always been intrigued, and I seek to understand, and I got it. But I think the way you just presented it there with the way that you did it, I now understand why people are wanting to be called they or we. Like, I get it now.
It's like that whole form of separation of, even when someone says like me versus we, like it's a shift of everything. It's like like individualism versus collectivism, it's like, I'm not trying to be like, I wouldn't be here without all these other things around me. So let's universally connect. And that they, them, it's just we, it's us.
For me, for we.
Yeah, we did this course one weekend, this crazy course. And the point of it was to shift from the singular me consciousness to group and as a group together. And there was one point in the course when if your group didn't show up on time, the leader would call out and be like, where's your group members? And the person in the group would be like, well, I'm not their mother. So like, they're late. I don't know. They're coming. And they're like, but if they don't make it, you don't make it. You're a group. Why are you letting somebody fall behind? Like, what if something happened to them? Do you know? Like, and it was such this paradigm shift that occurred in me. And I think you too, of like, I realized that I didn't really give a crap about a lot of people. And I was just focused on me of like, well, I'm not their mother, oh, I guess they didn't call. So, whatever. And after this course that we did, it was a complete paradigm shift of like, we're in this together. And if you're not being raised up, then I'm not. Like, this is all a collective thing that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, I know like it's kind of my selfish Pisces in me, but like, you don't want to be responsible for someone else's actions, but you do want to, again, navigate, kind of guide them and support them to kind of continue that growth of community, of group, collective, whatever that looks like in that moment. But I do, even during these times, it's like, okay, I'm very fortunate to have actually gotten hired as a delivery driver, delivering pizzas, but I know there's like a lot of other people who don't have that opportunity. So it's kind of having like a different appreciation for, I forget where I was going with all that. Totally lost my train of thought.
That's all right. We followed you through it. I totally get it.
just having that awareness of, okay, I know where I was going. Like, I thought I was like alone in losing my job and like not being of service, not working, you know, feeling very underappreciated. But then I like took a step back and realized, oh my God, there's actually so many more people affected by this that I wouldn't even consider, you know, retail workers, like car salesmen. Everything has been, you know, to the T. Like they're all kind of in that same boat of what I
Yeah.
was before. And that was me thinking, oh, I'm the only one who lost a job due to COVID. Nope. Newsflash, like, yes, there's like 10 million other people unemployed, but they're feeling the same way. They're having these same emotions. And
Yeah, literally everyone is affected, even if you were like the CEO of a company, like you're affected too. And for this to be happening on such a global scale, like as awful as it is kind of nice that like, okay, this is for like the first time since I don't even know that every single person on the planet is impacted. So we're kind of brought together by, you know, this is happening. So
I've
you're not alone.
learned to see like the more, I mean, it's challenging to see the beautiful side of this, but this is like that shift we've all been talking about for years of what's happening. It's like the universe is literally just shaking up what no longer needs to be in this realm of existence. And that's basically
Yeah.
And it
corrupt
has to come up.
leaders and like all of
And it
this.
has to come up to the surface. Like the work that I do, everything must come up to the surface to be looked at with love and compassion and transmuted.
Mhm.
And that I do that on a micro level. That's what I do as an individual and with my clients and my community. But on a global scale, the same thing has to happen. Things have to get really weird and murky first of things rising to the surface to get transmuted. And so that's exactly what's happening on a collective scale is a lot of things are coming up to the surface now because they were all illusions based out of fear and things that aren't truth. And it all has to come to the surface before it can be released.
For sure. It's definitely a fun, interesting time. And I'm thankful to be here, of course, and be a part of this. I guess my soul signed up for it, I've been told, you know.
Yep.
Great. So what would you say is like your sincere message behind, you know, you're doing it sincerely on Instagram, is that right? Or you have a YouTube channel as well?
I put all my videos on YouTube. I'm not like actively on YouTube. I feel like that's a foreign world to me of YouTubing and becoming, Instagram. I love Instagram so much because that's just a way to communicate back and forth with the community as well. But Instagram is my main platform.
And you have it just Chronicles of Sasquatch? That's like the main, right?
Oh, yeah, Patreon. Yes. We just started a Patreon too.
Congrats.
But yeah, thank you. And then yes, it's Chronicles of a Sassquatch. And I think this thing is ever evolving. You know, I think as I step into my vision and my higher self more and more, that this may evolve and I may show my face. Like, you know, I really want to step out in the community more. And it's starting to happen, you know, more and more. So I think this will just be a continuing evolving thing that Sassquatch is. But for right now, yes, it's Chronicles of a Sassquatch on Instagram. And we have our little Patreon going.
Cool. Do you recall when you actually like started this? Like when was the first day you said, I'm gonna jump up in the suit and go take photos in the snow?
It was like, we were actually coming back from Aspen. It was like maybe 2.5 years ago or 2 years ago. Maybe it's like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like winter of 2 years ago. And her initials are like SAS, sass. And so her friend sent her this card of like a sassy Sasquatch. And seeing that, I remember in the car seeing that, and something sparked because of this funny little walk I do. And I was like, what if we like I become the Sasquatch and I dance and I do the walk. And it kind of just started off as like, let's just do this for creativity, for medicine, you know, to be able to express ourselves more, you know, full and have a creative project together. And then after 6 months like if you go back to the beginning, you'll see they're really cute posts. They're adorable. And I took a break because I was going through another one of my valleys. I went to Peru to sit with some medicine in the jungle. And when I came back and did this course that we did, we came back with like intention. Like it was a way different vibe than when we first started. And it was like, that's when things really started to take off. And that was June of 2019 is when I was like, I want to start something. Like my whole heart and power is behind this. And that's when the following took off, when everything took off from there.
Yeah, because it's like an outlet. And I feel like like you said, Sassquatch is evolving, but like in the beginning, everything was just flowing through you when you had the mask on that you wouldn't normally share on your personal Instagram. So you needed this Sassquatch account to get everything out. So it's not just the dancing, but like all the feeling. And even now you'll share something with me and I'm like, okay, throw it on Sassquatch, because everyone else is feeling this too.
And it alchemizes the moment when sometimes I get lost in my own drama and I'll share it with her. And she'll be like, okay, are we going to share this or what? And I'm like, oh my God, let me share this because I can't be the only one. And then doing that, it transmutes it. It's like, I release it. It's not mine anymore. And like, then the evolution, and then I step into like the next layer, the next level of my game almost.
And the more you're doing it, that's why we're getting closer to, the next, stage or where it evolves, because you are doing it so much that you can kind of shed the skin, right?
Yeah, I'm shedding a lot of layers, like both emotionally, physically, spiritually. And I think by just sharing that, you just release things from your space anymore, and I don't carry them anymore. And then like the evolution process is just now an ever evolving thing.
That is so beautiful to me. Because it's so different from, what someone can choose to, again, that transmuting of like, you're fully aware that this pain and suffering is within you, but you're like, well, I want to do something with it. And you're kind of doing both like a creative outlet, but also inspiring like the next tier of masses who kind of have these very similar thoughts and emotions, but don't know what to do with them. So when they can find Sassquatch, of course, it's like, holy shit, even this person or, whoever's behind this mask is like a real thing.
My intention is for people to find themselves in my words and in my stories and in my experiences. Because there are people that I follow, that I read their words and I find myself in their words. And that's always like the first step, realizing that you're not alone and you don't have to have shame around something, and then to be able to express it and then share it with your people, your community. It's a beautiful gift that just keeps on giving. Mm-hmm. We all just get to release layers with each other and connect on a way deeper level than I've ever connected before. Growing up, I felt very disconnected, but I didn't have language to it. I always knew that I was like, why don't I fit in? Or I can sense things that no one's talking about. Why do I feel like you actually just said something that wasn't a truth and no one's saying anything? But I didn't know how to put language or appropriately express it. And so I kept everything to myself. And even I could be in a crowded room, but felt very alone. And after doing this work, now when I meet people, like we just met, but we're having a conversation that's beautiful and enriching. And I'm like, we don't have to do small talk anymore of like, it's just such a beautiful paradigm that I've created and that you've created, because we're, co-creating now this together. And it's just much more enriching and deeper than I've experienced before I started doing all this work.
Sure. And I think it's, again, really important nonetheless, like during these times, but to have these outlets again for people to discover and learn from and heal through, and hopefully encourage, another person through their work to do the same thing. So it's powerful. It's like such a cool commitment to see that people are doing, and just fully like, okay, this is what I'm here for. And like, again, not holding back anymore and releasing those layers, because we don't need it. It's all just been pasted on, and we're just slowly removing, the painted layers, if you will, by one at a time.
Yeah, and then by doing that, Yeah. And then by
your true self.
Yeah. And then collectively, by everyone doing this on an individual level, we stop subscribing to old paradigms that don't actually work. Like I remember when I was in the workforce and I was tired. I was tired. Then because I was so almost unfulfilled, I would go out binge drinking every weekend because the pain of my weeks were too extreme that I had to help the situation and somehow. But after doing this work and finding what my own truth is, I was able to quit my job. Like I stopped giving that energy and I'm going to go create, and I'm not even going to fight that. I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to create something different. And if more people start doing the work and finding out what their truth is, we stop subscribing to old ways of living and being, and we can go and create new earth. We can go and create something that is more in alignment with everyone collectively, a world that works, not just for me, but for the world, a world that works for everyone.
Yeah, 100%. If you don't mind me asking, what type of corporate work were you doing?
I was in sales. Yeah. And I was actually selling like mobile apps. Like it's actually like, I had a gig that a lot of people liked and it wasn't a bad job. Like I enjoyed it too. I was able to work from home, thankfully. But it was so out of alignment with everything about who I am down to the core. Like it took me a while to tell anyone that I worked with that I was like, had this Instagram account of like a dancing Sassquatch. But once I stepped more fully into that and I was releasing more layers and trusting in a higher power that I'll be okay. And I don't have to live in fear anymore. I can choose love instead of, work at a job because I just need the paycheck to pay rent and all my bills. And one day the voice, I heard my intuition, which I've only heard my actual intuition about 3 times in my life. And it said it was time last November to quit. And I even tried to reason with the voice, but it was just, the call was too strong that I said, I'm going to go into full trust mode, that I will have what I need when I'm supposed to need it. And I'm going to trust that I just need to step into my truth more, and that like everything will be okay and it will all come as it's supposed to come.
And it totally has, huh?
It's really wild actually that things come to me. I try to, fear will come up and I allow it to come up and I allow it to burn away, the illusion to burn away, that's just a creation from the mind, and things are flowing and they come when they're supposed to. And I just try to stay centered and really, anchor that belief in my being, that life is supposed to be free flowing and easy. And yeah, it's been working so far.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I know I was just like, this girl is awesome because she's doing something very outside of the box. And, that's the type of people I'm looking for to invite on this platform, because that's what's shifting the paradigm. It's making people question like why, what, and it's refreshing again to see that there is things being creative alternatively outside of the conditioned box that most people are still kind of buying into. So it's recruiting and connecting with people, that are like-minded and resonate on this level of understanding and creation. So really thankful that you girls.
We love conversation
style.
Yeah,
this felt so organic.
Yeah.
Like I appreciated that you started recording from the beginning. Because it was just like a conversation.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I might go back and edit like a few things, but that's just so the audience doesn't get like pulled off into different, like I want them to kind of stay flowing with the subject of matter or whatever. But it is fun, and that was kind of the whole vision with it all too. It's like, all right, most of these podcasts are kind of like, I feel like, well, not even podcasts, like interviews kind of come off as like to the T, like questions, give me an answer. No, I want to kind of create a flow and like have a real life conversation that people would be having. But of course it's just recorded, and now I'm able to launch it to the world. So feed the masses good information, and we'll make it through together. I know we will.
Yeah, girl. That's just, keep creating like this. That's really cool. Like I've thought sometimes like, should we start a podcast of like the woman underneath the mask or something like that? And it may come at some point, but I just think podcasts, like all I listen to are podcasts from people like new ideas, and just when people just share experiences. I think that's really when I learn the most is when people share experiences. And yeah, I really appreciated this because we love when it's like more conversation than like interview style question and answer.
Yeah. And then I feel like your listeners can really,
be in it, like they're in the room with us. Yeah.
Awesome. I really appreciate hearing that, because of course my inner critic was like, well, what are you doing? This is not like, you're trying to be like Joe Rogan, and no, this is like way different.
Well, it's funny you said that, because I was like, I love Joe Rogan, so I listen to his podcast, and sometimes I'll get frustrated when I see that he's talking to someone, and then it's not interview like, and I listen anyway, and I'm like, well, this is a fun conversation I didn't imagine like them having. And I feel like you remind me of like everyone we've done podcasts with, most like Joe Rogan, in the fact that it's a fun conversation, and it's like no matter what they're talking about, it's like I feel like I'm in it, versus like the interview.
I know there's a lot of good detail and messages to receive and to take through it. So I think most people are kind of like, they know what they want to share before they get on here, but it's me just making sure I'm open to listening to them and can listen. I think a lot of people, of course, in our way of living, we're quick to like respond, and we don't even listen to what the actual the person is speaking of. So for me, like I firmly believe like I'm a really good listener. So this was like the perfect opportunity for me to like hear what other people have to say, kind of digest it, and then move forward with that. So it is fun. Editing part is not fun, but
I can imagine.
This is fun because I get to go back and of course kind of hear where my thoughts and things were going. And with the whole like it being uploaded and kind of there forever, I feel like this is really useful content for anyone, no matter what stage of life they're at. They can kind of go through it. So pick what they want to learn about that day. For sure. Well, thank you girls so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Let's like keep in touch, and I would love to know the things that you're stepping into and creating in any way that we can support or help. We totally want to.
Awesome. Thank you.
You got me, girl.
Likewise too. So of course, I'll definitely tag you, brand you, all that good stuff. But it probably will take a few days, up to a week. So I have honestly like 3 other podcasts that I'm editing from last week. So I just want to not get behind on myself and
girl.
So yeah, I'm still grinding it out over here. I'm not being paid for it, of course, but it's out of love. This is what I want to do.
And that's what's the most fulfilling. All the other stuff, the money, the stuff that's going to come in and that'll all be the side effects for it. But the real fulfillment is you just following what your truth is. So just have the faith, and I promise it's all coming, girl.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, I need it too sometimes, so don't worry.
Yeah, we all do.
All right, lady. Well, have a good rest of your day, and we'll be in touch, okay?
Thank you so much. You too.
Bye.
All right, bye, love.